Making the most of every day. That's always been the core mission of hospice care. And today we're going to take a close look at a program that's focused on just that goal, to bring unique, memory-making experiences into the lives of hospice patients and their loved ones. Welcome to This is Hospice on Manatee Educational Television. I'm Dave Glazer, and I really think this is a program you're going to enjoy. When you think of hospice, you probably don't immediately connect it with art, music, or humor. But those things and more are exactly what we'll be discussing today with my four guests. At Tidewell Hospice, it's called Complementary Services, and it encompasses a wide variety of programs designed to reduce stress, bring pain relief, distraction, opportunities for joy and healing. To teach us more about this special concept, we have Kathy Bergen, who coordinates Complementary Services at Tidewell, Jane Welsh, an expressive artist who works with hospice patients, and Tidewell Pet Therapy volunteer Ruth Streb and her dog Skye. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Kathy, let's start with you.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about Complementary Services and what that program provides for hospice.
Complementary Services is the umbrella over 9 different departments: pet therapy, horticulture therapy, clown therapy. Our touch program encompasses 3 separate programs also, and it's massage therapy, caring touch, and Reiki therapy. We also have Expressive Arts, aromatherapy, and music therapy. So it's a wide range of departments, and we're basically volunteer-based. So we have lots of volunteers who come in and touch our patients over 4 counties on the southwest coast of Florida. Our horticulture program is a good example to explain an interaction that our horticulture therapist had with one of our patients. We had a new patient come to the hospice house in Sarasota, and he was pretty shut down, didn't want to talk to his family. His family was very upset, and his family decided to take a break, and they went out to dinner. And while they were gone, our horticulture therapist happened to be there and dropped off what we call a sensory stim vase. And it's a small little vase that goes on the bedside table that has scented herbs and flowers. Well, nobody had told us because of, he had just been admitted that he was a botanist. And what the horticulture therapist does is she leaves a little card beside the tray. He didn't want to talk to her either, but after she left, he read the card. And when his family came back from dinner, he shared everything that was in the vase and described all the Latin terms that went along with the properties that were in the vase. So that started conversation. He wasn't ready to start talking about dying, but that did open communication for him. It's a small example, but it's an example that shows true every day. Every day, patients receive those stim vases, and we have wonderful results from them.
So that's what these programs really are designed to do.
They are. It's all about engagement and communication.
Sure. Get folks interacting and build some sort of communication between them, their loved ones, or between them and their caregivers, correct?
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about your clown program. I know you mentioned that among the list. Tell us about those folks.
Our clown program is what you can imagine it would be. Our clowns go out and visit all facilities, as well as do community events. They all have their clown costumes and brightly colored faces, so when they go into a facility, it really brightens up the atmosphere, and patients so look forward to the visits. It's breaking up their day. They do balloon animals, they make balloon animals, they sing songs, they put on skits. Sometimes they'll get all the patients in a facility together and put on full-fledged shows. They've done parades in facilities. We had a special request from a facility that was having a Disney day and asked our clowns to come. And so they joined in on the parade and passed out balloons and just stopped to say hello to everyone. Mm-hmm. And that, as small as it sounds, is so important to each and every patient, to have that interaction.
And how does one become a hospice clown?
Well, we're having a training that starts in the fall. So all they have to do is call their volunteer coordinator or come straight to me, and I'll send out an application to them and get the process started.
Well, from what you've already told us, a lot of these programs are volunteer driven.
They are.
So tell us what kind of process people go through in order to come in and become part of these programs.
Well, they can certainly call or email us for information. They have to complete, if they're working with patients, a 15-hour volunteer program. Once that's completed, as in the clown program or the pet program, there are separate, there's a separate pet evaluation that everyone has to go through. And then with the clown program, there's an 8-week training. So it's a little more involved than maybe people think it is, but it's so worthwhile. And all of the volunteers that I work with, and I know the other volunteer coordinators have said the same thing. They come away from these visits saying that they're getting so much more than they feel they're giving to the patients. Mm-hmm. But they are giving the patients so much more too.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a feel for what kind of folks come into the program as volunteers for you, what their goals are?
A lot of volunteers say they just want to give back because hospice helped their family member. And you know, we have such a wealth of educated people in this area of Florida, and I'm sure all over, but in this area particularly, they come with such wonderful backgrounds. So they're not just walking in volunteering, they're coming with a wealth of information on their own. And a lot of the volunteer, if they're seasonal, volunteer when they go back home also. So they come to us just with the same passion that we all have who work for hospice.
And you said they receive some special training as well, depending on what kind of program they're involved with.
Any volunteer coming into any one of our programs has to complete the 15-hour program, unless they're administrative volunteers who I could not survive without. I have 5 administrative volunteers, and they're amazing and help me every day in the office. So it can be administrative, it can be any one of the disciplines that I mentioned, but our volunteer coordinators have socialization volunteers, they have respite volunteers, vigil volunteers who come in and sit at the bedside for those last hours that a patient is here, and just to hold their hand. So we have so many different, just from my department, but it goes on from that. So it's whatever you want. And I say to our volunteers who come in, if you have ideas, share them with us. And let us start something new. Maybe we haven't touched on everything. And I'm finding a lot of our pet volunteers and so forth, they're bringing music in with them while they're visiting patients. Just a CD player and a piece of music. I think that's, so they're seeing a need and they're reaching out even further.
And whether it's pet therapy or horticulture or clowning, how are the patients identified and connected with these services?
By social workers. Our social workers visit all our patients and they ask them if they'd like a pet visit, if they'd like music therapy, whatever they feel the patient would benefit from. Then they send the requests to me, I get on the phone, and you know, I just make the call. The volunteers are the ones who go out and really do the job.
Jane, let's talk a little bit about Expressive Arts. That's one of the programs I know that Kathy mentioned, and a program that you're involved with as an Expressive Arts. Tell me, what is Expressive Arts?
Well, Expressive Arts allows our patients to express themselves through music or art. Often patients want to leave a legacy behind, whether it be milestone cards if they have young children, to leave cards for each birthday, wedding day, first baby. I had a patient that had done the legacy birthday cards, milestones, as well as driver's license. She had a young son. No texting on the phone, don't drive with anyone the first year. So that's quite important for her to leave behind for closure and for her son to help with his grief. Also, we have a piece of art would be watercolor. And even patients that aren't an artist, it's about the process, not so much about the product, but this makes a beautiful greeting card that a patient can write a letter to a loved one.
So they don't have to have any kind of previous art experience.
Absolutely
You
not.
walk them through that.
And often the patients that enjoy the art therapy are those who have no previous experience because they don't feel so intimidated. There's watercolor. This is an example of a smush painting.
Smush painting.
A smush painting. We put on some classical music or music of the patient's choice. They can choose 3 colors. We just fold the paper and they let their hands go with their mood to the music. If they're angry, they might dab to try and get some of that expression out. And it makes a painting, and then we always make sure to date it, and they can name their painting.
Incredible. Tell me a little bit about the impact you see with folks when you're able to do this and provide legacies for their families.
Oh, the impact is great. Even with a patient such as an Alzheimer's patient, if you go in, the family might say, I don't think Mom can do anything like this. She's not able to do a whole lot. But so much as looking at a magazine and Mom might point at something, patient might point at something, we cut that out, make a collage, and the family member on this particular occasion started crying, saying, that tells Mom's life. And I said, tell me about that, because Mom wasn't able to speak. She said she had a rose garden, and she had yellow and red roses. She had 3 children, so in one corner, the patient had pulled out a picture with 3 children, and she told her life story, not by verbalizing, but by collage through art.
And what a special piece to leave behind for folks, too. I'm sure they have to be just thrilled to have these as keepsakes, memories of their loved one.
They do, and as I said, it's important not only for the patient, but their family to help with that grief process. But I believe that the patients feel closure, being able to write their own eulogy or leave behind a handprint or a poem. I do write poetry, so patients will tell me their loved one's attributes, and I'll use their exact word and write a poem using their words, and then we can embellish it and put a picture of the patient with their loved one and frame it, and they like to leave that behind and give that as a gift.
So it's really their choice what kind of memory they'd like to leave behind, and you work with them to make that happen.
Exactly. Often they have something in mind that they would like to do, a scrapbook or a memory book, a video, and sometimes they don't. They're saying, I'm not really sure. So we can kind of talk about some ideas and let them choose what makes them feel comfortable, what would be the right fit for them and their loved one.
How did you get involved in this? How did that become a part of your life?
Well, this is something that I've always wanted to do. I started volunteering at 9 in a nursing home and had a patient that was on hospice, and from then I always wanted to work with hospice. I saw the impact it made on the family and the patient with her comfort and closure. They didn't have a program such as this, but I just always enjoyed the arts and helping patients. So to help them with that closure, I feel is very important. And
you travel throughout the service area that Tidewell provides care in to do this with patients?
I do the 4 counties. I go through to the nursing homes, the skilled nursing homes, the assisted living, our hospice houses, private homes, and occasional hospital visits. Wherever the patients are needed, the social worker would put the referral in, as Kathy said, and then I go out within 3 days to make that assessment and help them with their journey.
Really interesting part of your program, Kathy, I would imagine.
It's wonderful, and it's such an expansive program. As you can see, Jane said about the painting, but the journaling part and the end-of-life legacy is such a huge part of that. Expressive puppetry, singing. It's whatever the patient wants, and if we don't do it ourselves, then we find somebody to do it. We bring a volunteer, or we'll go to the ends of the earth to accomplish whatever that patient wants in those last days of their life. And we've been pretty successful.
Have you seen people kind of unlock their artistic abilities by doing these programs with you, doing these pieces with you?
I have. I had a patient, and my first visit, she said, oh, I'm not an artist. I couldn't possibly do this. And we had done one of the smush paintings. I said, we'll start out with something pretty simple. And she did that. She looked at her picture, and she said, oh, my. And I said, what do you see? She said, I see my dog in one corner and I see Jesus. Her dog had died a week before. And she said, I know now that my dog's in heaven and I will be seeing him again. So the next week she actually drew a picture of her dog, and she had never sketched. And she became quite an artist, and we had an art show in the nursing home, and everyone came into her room to see all of her artwork.
Amazing, absolutely
It is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Ruth, let's talk a little bit about pet therapy while we have our great visitor here with us, Skye, who seems to be more comfortable on this set than anybody else. Tell me,
if you're not going to do something, I'm going to lay down.
Yeah, that's right, if you're not going to include me.
Look at that.
Yes, we're talking about you. Yes, we are.
Tell me, Ruth, how did you and Skye get involved as pet therapy volunteers? What made you want to do that?
I had volunteered to hospice, respite care, and I got into that. And then when I received the literature that there was pet therapy and explained it, I thought, oh, I think Skye's a good candidate for this. He was very gentle and very loving, and so we went and inquired about it, and we went for the evaluation, and he passed the first time. So we've been doing this for almost 2 years now. So he likes to go. I ask him, do you want to go to work? And he's up there ready to go.
He's ready to go, yeah. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the evaluation. What's involved in the evaluation to have the pets as pet therapy volunteers?
Basically, does he obey commands, sit down, stay, that type of thing starts out. And how does he interact with other people? Because like we go to the hospice house, and you go from one room to the next room, and you have people who are very ill, and then you have a lot of family that's there. Does he greet these people? Is he very gentle with them? And does he behave? That's the key word, does he behave? So he's very good. He gets along well with people. He's not as crazy about dogs as he is people.
Is that right?
Sit, Skye.
Well, much like the work Jane does in art, I'm sure you see.
You don't have to lay down because you're sitting.
You know, much like the work that Jane does with art, interacting with folks, I'm sure you see that kind of.
Many people describe the dogs that they've had through their life, and it brings back good memories for many, many people. They always tell me about, oh, I had a dog just like that, and he did this and he did that, and I miss my dog, and so on and so forth. They seem to stop thinking about their everyday life and think about the animal they had and all the pleasure that the animal gave them.
Kathy, I know that Skye is part of a large program. Tell me how many animals you have in the pet.
We have 76 right now, 1 bird, 2 cats, and the rest are dogs. And we're expanding. I have another pet evaluation next week. So we don't have them on a weekly basis, but as needed basis. So if I only had 1 volunteer, I would bring that volunteer in for an evaluation because we want to get them started as soon as we can. We do try to get at least 5 dogs together. Part of the evaluation is seeing how the dogs react with other dogs, bringing all the dogs together. Food aggression is another part of the evaluation. So we'll put treats down to see if the owner can keep the treat away from the dog, essentially. Because we're watching out for the dog. We don't want the dog to have a food aggression and go in and maybe pick up pills at a facility or some type of food off the floor. So it's a pretty in-depth pet evaluation. But as you can see, Skye passed with flying colors.
You sure did. Ruth, can you think of a particular story when Skye entered the room with a patient that there was a clear impact on that individual?
Oh, there was one lady in a nursing home, and she had many sores on her legs, and she was in a scooter type thing to get around. And we would go there, and as soon as we would go there, he would go and lick her legs. And she said it always felt so good and he wouldn't leave until he'd licked both legs. She really enjoyed that.
And as you mentioned, it brings back memories of pets perhaps that they've had.
Right. They seem to enjoy that, you know, the fact. And He doesn't say much, but I'm glad of
But
that.
he makes a big impact without saying
Yes.
anything, right?
When he was a puppy, and still to today, he will run across the room and jump on my lap, and then he puts his head up here by my neck and just pushes like he's trying to give you a hug.
So this is a guy who really enjoys his work.
Yeah.
He does. He likes to go. He likes to see all the people. Yeah.
And you can see how wonderful it is just for a patient to be able to feel his warmth and his fur.
Oh, they talk about his fur all the time,
Yeah, well,
and ask me, do I have to do a lot of brushing?
Right.
One of the things that I think maybe it's important to emphasize is that the programs involved in complementary services are available to patients no matter where they are.
That's correct.
Whether they're in a hospice house, whether they're in a long-term care facility or in their own home, correct?
That's right. That's correct.
Yeah, so you're able to bring that into individuals' homes.
That's correct. That we have such a wide volunteer base, and we're really fortunate to have that volunteer base that we can call and send pet therapists out wherever we need them. And it doesn't mean they have to go. You know, I'm always telling our volunteers, you can say no, it's all right. They all feel like they have to do, you know, go immediately. But for, the homes and the long-term care, naturally it's going to be a very different type of visit. Long-term care, when Ruth walks into a long-term care facility, all the patients, a lot of patients are sitting out in the halls. Everybody gets to touch Skye.
We make the rounds. One patient I had was in the very last room at the end of the second hall, and we stopped for everybody along the way.
So a visit, she may get called to go visit Mrs. Smith at one facility, but she may be there for quite a while because everybody wants to touch the dog or the cat or whoever's visiting. So it's wonderful. She's reaching out to a lot of people.
Right. Well, obviously this is a very unique program, unique to hospice too, I think. I think that it's a program that is part of that something more that is provided in hospice. Is that how you look at the program?
I do. I look at it also as so therapeutic because it, you know, a lot of people used to say, oh, you have the fun program. And I said, we do. It's a wonderful program, but there's such a therapeutic component to it. That's why we call them therapies. They really are therapies. And to have our volunteers to get out there as often as we call is amazing. I'll tell you a quick, do I have a minute to tell you a quick story?
Absolutely, sure.
Just the other day, I had a request for Reiki, and I called this brand new volunteer and asked her if she'd be able to visit. She said, well, I'm going to Central America the day after tomorrow. She said, but I'm only going to be there for a week. She said, I'll call the patient tonight. I'll see her tomorrow, and then I'll follow up next week when I get back. I mean, I hang up the phone from these calls all the time, amazed. I mean, if I was going to Central America, I'm sure I'd be packing bags and I'd be running around. But she's so giving, our volunteers. They just, whatever you need, that's what it is. Just tell me what you need.
Yeah, probably the last thing you would be thinking about is your volunteer at that point, but these folks really are dedicated.
They are dedicated.
Yeah, and I think you can see that from the folks we have right here.
Oh, thank you.
I had a volunteer, a patient, and I spend a lot of time with the lady's husband. And one day I said to him, well, we have to go now. I said, we'll see you next week. And he said, I really look forward to you coming. And that was the best thanks anybody could ever get.
It is, because it's really a distraction. It's a distraction for the families as well, whether it's in the hospice house or any facility, to be able to sit down and just pet a dog. It's taking them away from the pain that they have, losing their spouse or family member. So it's a wonderful distraction for them, as well as being able to feel, touch, have that touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, ladies, I want to thank you very much for being with us today. I think we've talked about a really unique program that offers a lot to folks and can leave a lasting legacy, as the art program does, as the pet therapy program does. I think you provide a service that is really, really unique for folks, and and I appreciate you sharing that information with us. This has been really such an interesting discussion, and I hope an eye-opener for many of our viewers. Hospice is certainly dedicated to adding quality of life for its patients and their loved ones, and there's no doubt that these programs do just that. Kathy, Jane, Ruth, and Skye, thank you all so much for being here. We want to leave you today with a really special treat, too. We had the pleasure of following Ruth and Skye during a recent visit with a patient at Tidewell's Hospice House in Ellington, so you can see them in action. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on This is Hospice.